the reason I don't let these negative comments affect me is because everything they're telling me, I've already told myself. Eyes on the money. I'm in my lane. Don't let this affect me.
Welcome to the Grant Owen Podcast, where we explore the world of entrepreneurship. Join us as we dive into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to start, grow, and scale a successful business. We're on a mission to share our experiences, failures, insights, and advice with others. Whether you're just starting out in your entrepreneurial journey or you're looking to take your business to the next level, tune in and join the conversation about what it takes to succeed in the world of business.
We going full throttle.
Welcome to the Young and Driven Podcast. I'm your host, Grant. And as always, thank you so much for giving me your time, and I hope you get value out of this. My goal is that if you enjoy this episode and you like it and you got value from it, that you would send it to one person. I don't need you to like, comment, subscribe. I don't need any of that stuff. I just hope that one person that needs to listen to this, in this particular episode, probably someone that needs a laugh, that you would send it to that person. So please do that, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you get value. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for being here, dude. I appreciate it. I was super excited to talk to you. I love seeing what you're doing on social media and just through our mutual connections. And I feel like you just have an energy that's like super kind and super joyful. And I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy about this whole community that we've built through this program and meeting so many people. And it's an honor to be on your podcast.
Love it. So can you give me just like a quick story? Not even quick. Let's dive into, you had mentioned before we started this episode that it's the 20th anniversary of you going to Calgary, Canada. Talk to me about I'm guessing you're feeling very sentimental and you're feeling very like, okay, there's a lot of emotions. Sometimes people don't care about that kind of stuff, and sometimes people really, it like affects them a lot. So talk to me about that. Talk to me about like the last 20 years and the development into who you are right now as a business owner who's doing comedy at the scale that you're doing it.
Thank you. Yeah, so basically, my wife and I just bought a ticket to go to Calgary, actually, for the first time. I came to Quebec. I came to Quebec.
Okay.
20 years ago.
Gotcha.
And I'm trying to find the words of what this may be. I wanted to do something special to commemorate my 20 years in Canada. So I'm Costa Rican, born and raised, but my parents are Peruvian. So even growing up in Costa Rica, I was already kind of an immigrant. I never really felt it when I was there, but reflecting, my household was Peruvian. My parents are Peruvian, my brothers are Peruvian. And then when I was 6, my parents divorced, and my dad moved to El Salvador, remarried. And then years later, I moved to El Salvador. Then I moved to Mexico.
Okay. And
then I moved to Montreal, to Quebec, and then to Toronto. Okay. And I moved to all these places because of my dad's job. My dad is a drug lord.
wait.
Nah, just joking. Nah, joking. He's a businessman. So pretty much the same thing. And so when I was 15, I lived in Mexico, and there was an opportunity for me to go to boarding school in Quebec. My parents moved around a lot, and it was just a great opportunity for me to go there. September 3rd, 2003.
Okay.
This was my fourth country in 5 years moving around.
And how old were you at this point? I'm gonna out you right now. How old were you in 2003?
So I was 15, turning 16. I'm 35 right now.
Cool.
And it felt like amazing because for the first time I wasn't like not the weird guy, but like the new guy who was moving around all the time. Everybody at this boarding school was moving around all the time. Had lived in a bunch of countries. So it was really cool. I went there for 3 years, graduated high school, and then went to U of T, the University of Toronto, which is kind of similar to Tampa, UT. My sister went to UT, and I went to U of T. And then once I graduated in finance and economics in 2006 to 2010, graduated 2010, I started working at a bank, at Scotiabank here in Toronto for 7 years. I ended up working there, became a senior manager in wealth management, helping manage Latino millionaires' money that were custodied in Canada.
Nice.
And simultaneously, I started doing stand-up in 2014. I also started doing public speaking through Toastmasters in 2012. And that started to gain momentum until in 2017, along with my best friend and current business partner. He was also a senior manager at Scotiabank. We started doing stand-up together in 2014. And then in 2017, we both quit the bank on the same day at the same time to pursue our professional careers in stand-up. And then proceeded to the next day go on a 3-week tour to Miami, Costa Rica, and Colombia to perform.
Wow.
Probably not the best of ideas because we were spending the money that we were going to need after. We went from making a lot of money to no money, but looking back on it, it's just what a great time, what a great story.
Are you guys still friends?
Yeah, he's my current business partner.
That's cool. That's cool. So you've just been through the journey together. That's really rad. Okay, I'm gonna fire off some hot take questions. You've experienced so many different countries. Which one's the worst one?
Well,
The worst one to live in.
Worst
one to live in. Worst one to live in.
The worst one to live in, I think it'd be like on paper, El Salvador.
Okay.
Just because it has a lot of bad press about the gangs, las maras. But recently, I went to El Salvador a couple months ago, see my family, and the new president, Nayib Bukele, who's very controversial in the news, but he's actually taken like a very crazy stance on gangs, and he pretty much did like if you look like a gang member, I'm serious. He declared 90 days of just no, I don't even know what in Spanish it's called un estado de excepción. It's like an exception state. So basically, you can get picked up by the police and you go to jail. It doesn't matter. And this guy's white. I'm telling you, white.
To be honest, that's the kind of dictatorship we need. That's the kind of stuff I want. That's the stuff I want.
That's why it's very controversial. But my family was like, listen, I don't even know if we like this guy that much, but the violence and the kidnappings and the rape and the killings have decreased so much that you can't help but like this guy. We've never seen this in the past 40 years.
Yeah. Well, I guess it really sucks if you're just like going through like an artistic phase where you're just like, I'm just gonna wear some of these clothes, and then it's like that's just like a really sucky thing. It's just like a really sucky time to be expressing yourself. Like
if you got maybe like you just got like a shaved head and an arm, like a sleeve of tattoos.
What if you're just like into chains that week? You know, like that really sucks. That's just a bad beat.
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with putting every single person that looks like a gang member into jail, but the El Salvador gangs are like the OGs of gangs. So they invented gangs in Los Angeles. Like they almost like La Mara Salvatrucha and La Mara 13 and La Mara 18. These are like the top gangs in Los Angeles, and they have like a system all throughout Latin America, and they tattoo their faces with the number 13 or the MS, that is the gang, all over their arms, everything, back of the head. So they're kind of like they're like telling everybody what gang, because it's like two rival gangs. But this guy's like, doesn't matter which gang you're part of, you're going to jail. So on paper, El Salvador is like the worst one, I guess, to live in compared to Mexico, Costa Rica, and Quebec. It's all relative.
To be honest, I'm actually surprised. So what has been the funnest place to? What's the funnest show? Like, what's your like, man? As soon as I can book this show, I'm like, I know it's going to be a good time.
Well, the best shows are in front of a lot of Latinos that I do here in Toronto, or in the outskirts of Toronto. So the coolest part is performing in Spanish for 15 countries, like people from 15 countries, because we all share the language Spanish. But we don't all speak it the same way. So we all have our own slang, and that difference in language is what makes the jokes. Yeah.
What for is it hard? Have you done stand up in both languages?
Yes, I do all the time.
Which one's more fun? Which one do you enjoy more?
To me, Spanish, just because it's my mother tongue.
Yeah.
But I love English too. You know, there's a lot of words stuff in English that you can't do in Spanish, and there's a lot of stuff in Spanish that you can't do in English. But
Yeah.
funny is funny.
Yeah.
I think I feel most comfortable in front of immigrants, in front of newcomers.
Yep.
But I've performed everywhere. I'm gonna perform I'm gonna perform in Costa Rica in 2 weeks. 2 shows in English, 1 show in Spanish. I'm gonna go to Quebec to perform. And I just performed in Barcelona and in Paris. Fun is fun, you know,
Yeah.
as long as it's relatable.
Yeah. Do you? Is it a completely different set based on language, or is it similar styles?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. So depends on the slot that I get. If it's a 5-minute set,
Yeah.
you know what? Yeah, the answer is yes. It's a different set. It's a different set.
Yeah.
So sometimes
it's like tight 5 versus, I guess, if you have the whole capacity to do, like, if you have a 12, you're like, let's go. We're having.
Yeah, if I have half
we're
an
doing
hour
this.
or an hour, then I get, which is what I'm doing in Costa Rica 3 nights in a row. Then I get to curate and everything. But if I only got 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, I'm going for the kill right away.
Yeah.
In English, I have a little bit I have less material in English than I do in Spanish, just because I do a lot more Spanish.
Yeah.
But I still have a lot of material in English that's relatable and that is not specific to a region. Like, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You don't have to be Latino or French or Canadian to understand it.
Yep. How's your crowd work? Is your crowd work good?
Yeah, that's one of my biggest assets, man.
That's your
the
big
crowd work is what sets me apart, I think, from other comics. So basically, I take it really seriously. I've researched it a lot, and the show and the crowd work starts before you even speak. So you arrive early. You arrive early to the venue. You see who's there. Yeah, you watch. You say hi. Who invited you? Why are you here? Oh, is this a bachelor party? Or what's going on? A bachelorette party? What's the occasion? Do you know any other comics? Where are you from? What's exciting these days? And then if I see lookalikes, I'm writing these down on my little notebooks too. I bring a notebook or a cheat sheet, or like a sheet of paper where I have my bits, and I'll be writing in them back. And then the key is to not, with your tonality, to not like say that this is the best joke in the world. It's just make it conversational at the beginning, so that you can, if the joke doesn't land, it's okay, because I'm just having small talk with you. So I don't start with jokes. I'll start making observations. I'll start talking to people. Obviously, it depends. If I only have 5 minutes, I'll go straight for the joke. But if I have more time, then I will talk to some of the audience members. I'll make fun of some people with some lookalikes. I'll make observations about why are there seven girls on that table and 1 guy, or like just anything that pops out. I'll comment about it. And when you take it pro is when you're able to weave in 3 separate observations that have happened in the show into 1 bit. Yeah. So, for example, this one time, I wish I would have recorded it because it was a good one. It was basically like, I said hi. I spoke to a couple and I was like, how long have you been together? And they were like, 3 months. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I made a couple jokes. 3 months, cool. And then 5 minutes later, I spoke to another couple right in front of me, and they were like, oh, I was like, how many years have you been married? And they were like, 3 years. And I was like, oh, cool, blah, blah, blah. And then 15 minutes later, I was talking to these 3 people, and they were single, blah, blah, blah. So then I said, oh, wow, so this is pretty cool. And I said, I looked at the first ones. I said, 3 months, 3 years, threesome.
Yeah. Nice.
And
nice.
And like you weave it in together. Sometimes you got an engineer
it
there.
Builds a growth. It builds a growth. Yeah. What?
100%.
So when you go for like 3 months, unravel that for me. Like what immediately comes to your mind is like someone's like, yeah, we've only been together 3 months. Are you hitting them hard with like like you're so fresh? Do you guys trust each other? Like show me your what do you try to unravel, or is it just kind of like very candid?
No, I'm going straight for sex stuff. Oh, the sex must be great right now. You don't, you're not bored of each other.
Yeah.
Or if they're not official yet, you can kind of make it awkward and funny about that.
Yeah.
Are you together?
Like one saying like I'm a girl. Yeah, he's my boyfriend, and the other one's like, oh, we're just hanging out. Like you go hard. Yeah.
So basically, there's two ways of what we teach in our public speaking through comedy workshops. So basically, you can go mitigate risk with yes or no questions, closed-ended questions when you crowd work, or you can embrace the risk, but it's still riskier, and do open-ended questions. Yep. So basically, what I teach my students who haven't really done crowd work and they may be scared of it because a conversation may jeopardize their set, you're like, just ask yes or no questions or things that are easy to respond, and after the third or fourth or fifth question, you're gonna get something. Yeah. So basically, it's like, what's your name? It's like, it's Grant or it's Grant. You know, what's your name? Grant. Oh, very nice. Yeah. How old are you? Let's just say 30. And you're repeating their answer to the mic. Yep. Because there's a lot of people in the back that can't hear you. Can't hear Grant speaking in the first row. So 30, very cool. Where are you from? I live in Tampa. Tampa, that's very nice. And after, are you single? So that's a yes or no question. And then after three or four yes or no's, close-ended, then you could say, why are you single? Yeah. And now you can start to embrace a little bit of the risk. And typically after 4 or 5 questions, something will happen. I remember one time I got a big pop of this interaction. So there was there was an Indian guy at my show, and I was like, hi, what's your name? And he was like, my name is Manoj. And I was like, Manoj, very nice to meet you. Where are you from? He's like, India. And I said, where in India? And he's like, downtown. I was like, downtown India? and everybody, but I think he didn't speak English that well. First couple weeks in Canada. And he thought I asked him, where does he live in Canada? Like in Toronto. And he said downtown.
Oh, it's like downtown India.
Downtown India. So you just have to repeat it. And it got a huge pop.
Love.
So just repeating it works.
How much of your, like, if you have an hour, are you trying to like say, okay, I can dedicate at least this much time to crowd work, just like working through the people?
I would say 5 to 10 minutes, and you have to be, and that's you have to be very cognizant and in the present, in the moment, to understand that it's got to be intentional, because you can tell when a comic is just trying to crowd work to fill time, and it looks horrible, and just by you knowing that. It makes it...
You know what's... But, like, Russell Peters kind of does that. And I can tell... Because he's, like... He's so good at crowd work, but, like, I feel like he's, like... Like, you could tell that... Because that's his whole thing. Yeah. He has some things that he's, like... I'm going to try to... I'm hoping I'm going to get somebody, or I'm going to pinpoint somebody out, and I have my bit that I've pre-planned. But, like, I'm looking for an Indian doctor, right? And he's like, I'm looking for that guy... Because I have my whole bit about my parents after, like he has so, but like to your extent, you're saying like you want to be aware of the room if they want to be receptive to it or not.
Yeah, in the case of Russell Peters, he's world class at it, and sometimes people go and see that. So, and I think he does it intentionally. He'll crowd work, and then he'll use the crowd work to transition into the bit that he already has.
Yeah.
So the best part is if the crowd work doesn't work, it's okay because you already have the joke, the established joke, but. You have to be very present to understand, like, hey, I've been talking for 2 minutes or 4 minutes to these 3 people, haven't got any laughs out of it. It's time to start the show. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to lose the people. And then if you progress and you got 20 minutes, solid 20 minutes, you got another 40 minutes to go, you can crowd work a little bit. One of the best moments to crowd work is when to transition into other bits. So if you're going to talk about the married life, you can actually say, by show of hands, so here is married. Yeah. And then a bunch of people raise their hand. So let's actually get who's actually been married for the most amount of years. By round of applause, who's been married for over 20 years, blah, blah, blah. Over 30 years. And then you got the couple, 39 years married. And then you can crowd work with them. Yeah. And then the other good place, which is more in the U.S. comedy scene, is when the headliner is performing and all the bills come to the table. To checks to pay, nobody's paying attention because everybody's paying. So that's a good place to crowd work. So you don't use
Lose
your
your
good
stuff.
jokes
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
nobody's listening.
Yeah. Who do you look to as like you love what they do? Like because like I'm sure you've had your people like in 2014, 2013 when you were like I want to do it,
Yeah.
and then you did the open mics. I'll ask you about like the come up and for people that want to do the open mic life, but like people that you liked then, and then people that you're like whenever they put something out, whenever they like that's I gotta watch that special as soon as it comes out.
Well, John Mulaney definitely is world class at writing. I went
Yeah.
to see his new special when he came to Toronto about 6 months ago, and that you just go to learn, man. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's super funny, but just the economics of words, like not a single word is redundant. You know, every
Yeah.
word has a purpose, and I love Brian Regan.
Okay.
I love Hannibal Buress.
Okay.
I love Bill Burr. Bill Burr
Yep.
Red Rock special on Netflix is
That was so good.
insane.
So good, dude. His
Yeah.
doesn't he has a bit on I think he had a bit on abortion, and I was like, it's so hard to do a bit on abortion, and I was like, what he did at Red Rocks was like that was so funny. It was so great.
That was
I'm all in
incredible.
love. Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever heard of the Bill Burr bit on Philadelphia, like when he have you listened to it?
No.
Oh man, it's actually like not a bit. It's something that really contributed to his fame in the early years.
Okay.
So basically, this is like the worst possible combination that most comics that we've been through. So they'll do a concert, like a music concert for a band. Call it Red Hot Chili Peppers, call it Metallica, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they're like, why don't we get a comic to open? Just like the
No one
worst
wants to-
idea.
no one wants to
Nobody
watch it,
wants
yeah.
to see you. And Bill Burr gets invited. I don't even remember what it was, but it was like a radio festival, like a music festival, and it was like a punk band or a rock band, and they invite Bill Burr to open in Philadelphia. But nobody wants to see a comic. They just want to see the band.
Yeah.
So they start like screaming and swearing, and Bill Burr's trying to perform, and he's like, guys, come on. And then out of nowhere, he's like, screw this, and starts to roast everybody in the audience. Roast Philadelphia, roast everybody, and just 10 minutes. And he's like, I'm not leaving this stage. I got 2 more minutes to go. Screw all of you. And continues to roast him. He does like 12 minutes solid roasting
love it.
everybody, insulting everybody. It's hilarious.
That's great. That's so fun. Well, it's because he's a Boston guy, so that makes sense. Because Boston people hate everybody, but they hate New Yorkers and they hate Philadelphians so much. That's so funny.
Yes.
So what about on the podcast side of things? Like, what do you like? You have your own podcast. What comedy podcast do you like? Who do you think is like doing it right? That's a big thing. Every comic's got a podcast at this point.
I think, well, I'll tell you the people who I've seen podcast clips that I haven't really heard, but I should.
Yeah.
So Theo Vaughn is hilarious.
Dude, his podcast, they're great. Yeah.
He I don't think there's any, just as a person and as random,
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody as random and funny as Theo Vaughn. I saw him on the Netflix as a Joke Festival in LA last May. Then I think when comics go to Joe Rogan, it's funny. I think that Francisco Ramos has some really cool stuff. I've seen him on podcast clips. He's Venezuelan in LA. He performs at the Comedy Store. He's a good friend.
Love it.
Carmen Lynch, she's American and Venezuelan. She does really cool stuff too. And apart from that, I don't even. Tom Segura has had a lot of my friends on the podcast because Tom Segura is actually Peruvian.
He is.
His mom is Peruvian. I think his parents or his mom is Peruvian.
His mom is.
So he has a Spanish and English podcast.
He said that it's so much harder to do Spanish shows. He's done like a Spanish leg of tours before, and he's like he's like to get, because even though that, like he said, like I think it's like that's his native tongue as well, and he was like it's difficult, like that's he's much more stressed out for those shows than he is for his American shows.
Yeah, I think Tom Segura is like 99% of his career has been in English because he grew up in the States.
Yeah.
And 1% of his shows have been in Spanish, and you can tell and it's not a knock on Tom Segura. It's not. It's
No.
it's just
Yeah.
a reality.
Yeah.
That if you're like if you're skiing on snow
Yeah.
for your entire life, and then you go ski on water and compete,
Yeah.
it's just a different muscle.
Yeah.
And a lot of us comics, we rely on spontaneity. We rely on being in the moment, and most of the time you're not even thinking about the words that are going to come out of your mouth. You're rolling with the punches. So when it's not your first language, Tom Segura's Spanish is perfect, but it's not his first language. I mean,
Yeah.
or the one that
Yeah.
he's been doing his entire life. So
Yep.
he's amazing. He's an amazing comic. And I know that if he did more Spanish, he'd be equally as amazing as he's in English. But it's expected, he's been doing English for decades.
For you, do you want, like, what's that? Tell me the difference between like the smaller shows. Some people prefer smaller shows, like it's a small room, maybe 100 heads, right? Versus like starting to do kind of like more theater stuff. Which one do you prefer? Which one's like harder?
Oh, a very good question. So definitely I love the 60 to 150 range. That's I think that's the intimacy level. The intimacy range is 60 to 150. You can still do pretty good on a 40 people, like trying out stuff. But when it gets to the 30s and 20s, it's just like you could have a good punch, but the laughter doesn't justify. Like you'll get the laughs, but it's not as contagious as if you have 150 people.
Yep.
Obviously, when you got 300 or you got 600, that's a roar, the roar.
Yeah.
And it kind of affects your timing. It not in a bad or a good way. It's just the timing is different because you got to wait for the laughs to come back down. So a show that might take you usually 10 minutes in front of 100 people may take you 12 minutes in front of 600 people, just because the timing is different.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
the crowd work is different too, because 600 people, they can't see unless there's like a screen, but they
Yeah.
can't really see the person who you're talking to.
Yep.
So it's different.
Yeah. Do you which one do you said so you prefer the 60 to 150?
Yeah, I
do you
like
feel
that.
like you would not want to scale up higher than that? Would you be like, I kind of want to just chill here, or are you
No,
like,
I would.
let's go?
I'd 100% do 10,000.
Yeah. Well, so tell me what would change in your approach if you're in front of a 10K crowd? Like, what changes in your approach of what you deliver on?
The only thing that changes is your timing, because the average laugh lasts longer. Just like on a punch, you would pause for 3 seconds for people in a 60 to 150
Yeah.
club to die back down so that you can continue your bit, because you don't want to talk over the laugh, because then you interrupt it.
Yeah.
And that's why the word that triggers the laugh is at the end of the sentence in the punch, because when that last word triggers a laugh, you want to shut up so they can laugh.
Yeah.
And then, so my timing would change. It would just take like a extra seconds to continue the bit after the laugh. And then the only other thing that would change is the frequency or effectiveness of the crowd work. Because when you got 100 people, when you got 60 people, everybody can see the person who you're talking to and even listen to their responses. You still got to repeat it back to the mic so that everybody can hear. But once it's 600 people, 1,000 people, there's 600 people, 700 people that have no idea what is happening in the crowd work. So you got to make sure they're looped in every single moment.
Yep. When you try to touch on cultural differences for, like, let's just say like immigrants and people that come from like the 12 different nations that all speak the same language, what are you trying to tap into to like in terms of like you want to be like, or would you say like your comedy at all is like you want to be just like a tiny bit offensive just to get the reaction, or are you just trying to find, you're trying to find commonalities and then riff on it, or are you trying to find like the differences and then riff on that?
So yeah, that's a very good question. So I think it's a process for you to understand what type of comedy you do, because I think, for example, I have some friends who do black humor or dark humor, and Yeah, dark. Like in Spanish is humor negro, which is like dark humor. So, but they always say it's not like I started because I wanted to do that. It's like as I was doing it, like the dark humor found me.
Yeah.
So in my case, my comedy is not very controversial. I'm not a very big guy. I'm 5'7". I've never been in a fight. I don't look I've ever been in a fight.
Yeah.
I probably get my ass whooped every single time. I smile a lot. I don't look threatening. So I think my comedy is very family friendly, but because I look like everything is family friendly, like my comedy is, I can get away with things.
Yep.
Today I was actually a bit worried because I had a joke in Spanish. It was a roast and the joke is very well written, but and it's in the context of a roast, and the roast is roasting countries. It's called the World Cup of Roast. It's like Roast Mundial, the World Roast, and we roast a lot of Latino countries, including and then Canada because we live in Canada.
Yeah.
And I had a joke, which is well written, but I didn't know if I wanted to post it because I didn't want to sound homophobic or like I'm an LGBTQ plus friendly person, and I didn't want to offend anybody. But I'm like, it's okay. Let's see where this leads us. And I had one comment that I actually deleted because I was like, if I get one more comment about this, I'm gonna delete the whole thing because I don't want to come across as homophobic or anything because I'm not. So the joke goes like this: we were roasting countries. So in this case, it was like the Canada roast, the part of Canada. And I said, if Canada was a TV series, it'd be the Power Rangers. Because you got whites, you got blacks, you got yellows, and you even got blues. And you got pink, and you even got blue. And then sometimes even the white one will be like, actually, I don't identify as white anymore. I want to be green. and in Spanish, like in any, I think in Spanish it's like it sounds more effective and smooth. I'm just translating it for the first time. Yeah. But the one person was like, so vintage of you to knock on the LGBT community, and I was like, here we go again. I'm like, come on. A lot of my friends, a lesbian friend who's on stage with me, is laughing next to me. Yeah. And a lot of my gay friends liked the joke. So I'm like, I actually got a couple of trolls commenting on it on TikTok, but their logo, their profile picture was Power Rangers. Yeah. so I have some Power Ranger haters.
Oh, I love it. Well, I want to ask you about that. So what do you think about like I have my opinion about this, and I would say I like dark humor, but I not just for like the sake of it. I also like, for me, like I watch a Dave Chappelle bit and I'm like, I see it's just masterful, right? But like Dave Chappelle is like able to weave through this stuff. He gets canceled, but like you can't cancel him because he's Dave Chappelle, you know. But what do you think about in comedy? Like, is offense allowed? Are you allowed to be offended at comedy?
We could talk about this for days, man. So first of all, comedy is truth and pain. There has to be, usually there is a victim to the joke. Yeah. Everything that is beautiful is not funny. Yeah. So comedy is just truth and pain or tragedy plus time. So naturally, typically, there is a victim. Now, this doesn't mean that you should punch down on communities that have been persecuted. And that's why I was so worried that I didn't want it to come across as an attack on the... Not even close. This is just... it's ridiculous. But still, I was worried about it. Yeah. I'm still worried about it. I'm checking my phone all the time.
You know what's really funny, though, is like... But, like, it's kind of fair play to be like, I hate white people. Like, that's like... Most people are like, I hate white men or I hate white women. Because, like, that's pretty fair play. But that's like... It's not the... It's kind of this... I don't know. I see people where I'm like, I'm sure in your experience in your lifetime, you've been to enough open mics or you've been to enough places where it's like someone just goes hard and it's like, okay, you don't have the authority. Like it's just like not even funny. It's not even funny. It's like you're just trying to be offensive, and just trying to be offensive cannot be like, there's no taste in that. But there's a difference between just
Yeah.
trying to be offensive and then trying to weave through a thread of like truth and different narratives that are at play.
Yeah, what's your point of view? Are you the victim of the joke, and are you or is it a witty observation?
Yeah.
I mean, it all depends. It all depends on the joke, and people take certain risks. Like the other, I have a joke about that a lot of people are still like commenting on my social media the other day. Mexicans are hating on me right now. I lived in Mexico. I love Mexico.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I had there's this Toronto and the city that's right next to it, like half an hour away. It's called Mississauga, and a fun fact is that, just for the context of the joke, is that all the Latinos, we get a visa requirement to come into Canada. Everybody has to have a visa. Every single country, except Mexico. Mexico they don't have to have a visa to come into Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, we were talking about different countries in Canada and Toronto, and I said, you know what? I mean, any Mexicans here? And like, yeah, they were like, and I was like, listen, I love Mexicans, but dude, there's too many Mexicans in Toronto. There's so many Mexicans in Toronto that Mississauga put up a wall. and
that's
it's
fair
a
play.
good joke, but
Yeah, that's fair play.
people get offended.
That's good.
I don't care. It's that I wasn't so worried about it as the one today.
Yeah.
But
Well, so tell me about social media, because social media is not a place like social media, especially when you're posting clips, whether it's like everybody most comics post their clips, whether it's from their special or whether it's from the show. Social media is like a place where it's like, and everything that goes viral offends somebody. There's nothing that goes viral on social media. I want to say that super broadly. I think there was like one post I've seen recently where there's one guy that he has brain cancer and he's running a marathon and he's raising funds, and everyone's like positively like, yes, we're going to make this go viral. Almost everything else, it offends somebody, or there's a line and people have an opinion about whether or not it's good. Passionately bad, passionately good, or this is right for this reason, this is wrong for this reason. You miss all the context within your set. So, like, do you feel like, are you someone that naturally has a thick skin to be like, yeah, I don't really care, I'll take it on. If you're offended, you're offended. You're probably not gonna like my comedy. Or are you someone that's like, I want to be careful with what I post because I want it to be, I still want to grow, and I care about what people think.
I am committed to being a great comedian, and I'm not attached to the hate or to any bit. So my commitment to myself is to post as many jokes as I can on social media, because that's going to grow my career. Mm-hmm. And I do two things to develop that thick skin. One is indirect and one is direct. The first one is I post and ghost. I don't, especially on TikTok, it's ruthless there, man.
Yeah.
I don't check the comments that much. So, but on Instagram, I've grown a lot recently, so I try not to check them. And especially if I can kind of see the comment will be negative when it's on my notifications, I'll delete it from my notification so I can't see it. And there's a lot of comments and
you
a lot
still
of
have
things
notifications
happening.
on, which is a big deal. That's a big thing.
No, I mean, I don't have it on my phone, but when I hit the heart in app. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I have zero notifications on my phone.
Cool.
And the other thing that I do is I kind of, if I happen to read a negative comment, I kind of reflect on this thing I heard from a podcast, a Mexican comic who's a friend. And he said, the reason I don't let these negative comments affect me is because everything they're telling me, I've already told myself years back.
Yeah.
So as many negative
But you could
things
say
as
that you could say that that's a bit too. It's like, you can't offend me because every single morning in the mirror I'm like yelling expletives at myself and just like hating myself. So yeah, I love that. That's so true.
Exactly. So I try to be like, and like a part of me is also like, oh, now you're commenting on my videos, even if it's negative. Like, you weren't there when I was shit 10 years ago, so why should I care that you're here now? Yeah. I'm like, eyes on the money. I'm in my lane. Don't let this affect me.
What? So let's dive into 10 years ago. What you started in 2014? I'm guessing you've always been. I'm guessing you've always been funny. I'm guessing it's just like, because that's a personality trait. So I'm just guessing like you've always been someone that can tell stories and be funny and connect dots. when you started
You know-
doing open mic stuff. Oh, sorry, go ahead. If you want to cut in, is that inaccurate?
Yeah, it's inaccurate. I was always the biggest supporter of everybody in class. I laughed the most at every single
You
joke,
laughed.
but I was never. My family still doesn't think I'm funny, you know.
Yeah, love it.
Like I like to think of myself as a big underdog in this case because
Cool.
I've never been the funny guy. I always thought I was funny. I always thought I had potential.
Yeah,
And I've worked so hard reading books and taking workshops and going through my videos and reviewing my videos and being very strategic and almost like obsessed with the craft
yeah,
to make myself into this person. But I've learned a lot of joke structures. I like to analyze things. I journal about my comedy. I grade myself in my comedy. I review the videos. I edit my own videos. So I'm committed to the craft. So even more now, I'm like, why should I? I'm very good now.
yeah,
And now, and you have negative. Who cares?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm even gonna get better.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I got 0 likes on every post
Yeah.
my every tweet that I did. I started doing vines. Most of them did not that good, but some went viral, and that's how I started to grow.
love it, love it. Okay, so you committed to being like, I'm going to be doing this, and I love that you're something that will be a bottleneck because like you're even saying it like you don't care about the negative comments. And to be honest, to achieve what you want to achieve, I was talking to somebody about this as well. It was a reference from someone that I think was a billionaire, and they went over for dinner, and someone like knocked on their door, like some stranger found their address, knocked on their door. The guy opened the door. Guy asked a question, whatever, closed the door, and the people that were over for dinner were like, "That must be super annoying. That you're like famous, relevant, that you have someone, and that people know your address and can knock on the door, or people know where you're at and can knock on the door. That exists." And the person said, "To have the impact that I want to have, I would pay that cost every single time." Mm-hmm. And I think to your extent, like to have the impact you want to have, it's just not going to happen without a thick skin of either being okay with not getting views for a long period of time until you grow, until you progress every 1% every day, and then also to withstand like the negativity, to withstand like someone being like, "That's not funny," or someone saying, "I'm offended." Be like, "Nope, there's a group over here and they're laughing and I'm talking to them." Like those are my those 60,000
Yeah.
followers. That's what I'm about. I'm about that energy.
1,000 true fans. And the other thing is, you can't improve without the shitty shows, without the shitty bits.
Yeah.
So it's that journey which is necessary. I mean, I think Kevin Hart said he sucked for 10 years.
Yeah.
I sucked. Like maybe in 10 years I'll say I'll suck for 10 years. My first 10 years.
Yeah.
But I tell you, my first 2 years were painful, man. Like
Yeah.
bad.
Well, tell me about that. So you went to, I'm guessing you did a bunch of open mics. Is that how you started? Mm-hmm. What I've been to a few open mics, and they are rough to watch. They are rough to just be a part of because there's that guy that has the same bit about rape. There's that person that it does something just political. There's the people that try to do something, but you're obviously missing. How do you endure that season? And so say like someone's listening to this podcast, they want to do comedy. Maybe they're trying to do comedy. Maybe they are that person that's going to open mics. How do you take that kind of experience, continually refine and learn to a point where you can actually scale to being professional?
Yeah, I think it's important to go to those open mics and develop your first 5 minutes, but it's also very important to not think that that's enough. I sucked for my first 2 years because I didn't read a book and I didn't join any workshops. So the mentorship aspect and the learning aspect, even in something as kind of subjective as stand-up, where you don't have like score. The score is the laughter, I guess.
Yeah.
You gotta read the books, man. There's 1,000 people who've done it before you, and success leaves clues. So I've read a bunch of comedy books, and in 2016 I joined my first stand-up comedy workshop at the Second City, Toronto, and that was like a huge game changer for me. and then I did level 2 and level 3, and then I started my own public speaking and comedy school, where I teach how to become a stand-up and how to do speaking and how to become a confident speaker. So you have to read the books and do the workshops, because otherwise, let's just say it may take you, just to throw out a number, maybe it'll take you 15 years to make it to Netflix just by going on stage. But it may take you 11 years if you read the books and you take notes and you ask for feedback and you take workshops and you review your videos. So you got to complement it.
What do you think about guys like, I mean, the biggest guy this past summer is Matt Rife. That's the biggest name. He's popping off. And you can go back and say like, yep, you see that he was doing some stuff before. You can see that he was on Wild 'N Out, right? He can you can see some of the level of progression. But what are your thoughts on him? Like someone that's like super young that like is just kind of like that viral hit. I'm sure there's a lot of comics that are like, I respect it, I see it, and people that are like, I hate it. What are your thoughts on him?
I respect it. I respect it immensely. I know Francisco Ramos, who's a good friend of his, and he's a good friend of mine. He's actually coming to Toronto to do our festival, Latin Comedy Fest, where we bring 25 of the best Latin comics for 3 nights to Toronto.
That's awesome.
And October 20 in Hispanic Heritage Month. And Francisco Ramos performs at the Comedy Store. He's Venezuelan in LA. And he's done Matt Rife's and Paul's show. And Christina is or was Francisco's manager. And I think was, because Christina's now Matt's manager, world tour manager.
Yep.
And you just gotta respect it. You just gotta admire it. And I saw a TikTok the other day talking about his meteoric rise, and apparently it was a crowd work video on TikTok that went viral when he was at Just for Laughs in Montreal.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was even invited to Just for Laughs Montreal that year. So just the fact that he's committed, going to the place, meeting the people, doing the networking, that happened. This is a lot of people think it's a Hail Mary, but it's not. Like, he's got hundreds of other videos that didn't make it, and that one did, but it's just a testament to his work. Like, he's becoming the type of person that goes viral and can do world tours instead of just hitting like a one-hit wonder and then peaking too early.
Yeah. What so people talk about how like the comic community it's almost like a it's almost like a union. Just in terms of like how like there's a bond, there's a unity, there's like, tell me about your experience there and what that community's like. Did you feel like you instantly got connected when you joined these workshops and you're like, yep, I found like I am in the community, I am in the comic space, there's a respect here that everyone has for each other? Or do you feel like you've earned that just slowly as things have gone?
I think there's different types of communities. We try to build a very supportive community in Malpensando, which is our Spanish comedy club and school. We actually also teach in English, but we have like the Spanish comedy niche in Canada. We were the first ones to do stand-up in Canada, so in Spanish. And we've always tried to make it supportive, hug each other, like support each other in the green room. And because they've done the workshops together, we've done the workshops together, we've toured together, we kind of built that friendship, and it's like a family in many ways. But when I've been to perform in Mexico and Colombia and other countries, it's almost like sometimes it feels like almost toxic in the green room, you know, like or in the bar, because comics are insecure people, I think, you don't want the next one to like kill it and you stay in the same spot. You don't want to see them go on Netflix and you guys stuck. So we've been to other places where it's not as welcoming, and to comedians' credit, like it's sometimes nerve-wracking to be in the green room knowing you're about to go up, so not a lot of people are socializing or having fun. Unless you're like a seasoned veteran, which you don't even care what's going to happen. You're just in the moment, or you know you're going to kill anyways. So we've tried really hard to build that community here in Malpensano in Toronto, but it takes time, and you also have to be everybody's biggest fan so that they know you're not a threat.
Yeah. Yep. Interesting. So yeah, you have to almost compensate with humility and
Yes.
compliments. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So as I want to close this down. I really appreciate your time. I have friends, and I think everybody has friends, and there's people that are listening to this that probably know someone that is like, man, I would love to get started. And they hear 11 years, and they're like, you know what? That doesn't sound too scary. And they're like committed to certain practice. So there's things that you're saying that are universally known that you don't even have to repeat, which is just like, get yourself out there, do it. But is there, and that in addition to joining workshops, particularly yours, but in addition to that, like what's something that someone could do if they're like, I really love comedy, I really think I could do this, I really want to try. I just want to try. I don't even know, but I want to try. What do you recommend? How do they get started? What should they do?
Well, first, take our public speaking through comedy workshop,
Love
7 weeks online, and you do a grad show online, and we help you write it, understand what is comedy, what is the setup and a punch, joke structure, and then you do a grad show on Zoom. And if you're in person in Toronto, then we do a grad show at a comedy bar. Hundreds of people have gone through our workshops, and it's transformative in terms of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you were in other places, and you're already going to do that, I would say just buy a book, man. Buy Judy Carter's The Comedy Bible, the stand-up comedy book. That's how I started. That's how 70% of stand-up comedy in the world start. Judy Carter, Greg Dean. That's how people start. You join a comedy workshop because it's easier to commit and do the stuff that's required in a group than to do it by yourself. Nobody's pressuring you. If you're like, yeah, I'll go to open mic. You're lying. You're never going to go.
Yeah.
Or you go, but you wanted to go 4 years ago, and it took you 4 years to get drunk and then go do it.
Yeah.
Just join a class. Everybody's nervous in that class. The community aspect helps a lot, and the positive peer pressure takes you further.
Yeah, love it. I love it. All right, well, where can people find you? And feel free to please vocalize exactly what your course is again, and I'll have it be in the chat. I'll have it be in the bottom. But where can people find you? Where can people support you? And I think this episode's probably going to come out sometime in October. So if you have dates,
On my birthday.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. So
I love it.
If you have dates, if you have something, you can say where people can find you, where people can if they want to see where you're at in that tour,
Yes.
even if this episode comes out at a different point. Plug yourself.
Everything is on my Instagram at Stephan Dyer, StephanDyer, Stephan Dyer, like Wayne Dyer, my dad, Dr. Wayne Dyer, the drug lord.
Yes. The business owner.
Yes, the
Wink,
business
wink.
owner. Exactly. And then in the link in my bio on my Instagram, you can find everything that I do, the courses that I teach, the shows that I'm gonna do, and especially if you're in Toronto, Latin Comedy Fest, October 2021 and 22. 25 of the best comics, as seen on Netflix, Comedy Central, HBO. The best Latin comics coming to Toronto. 25 comics, 3 nights for an incredible experience. LatinComedyFest.ca is where you can get your tickets, but probably by the time you listen to this, it's probably going to be sold out. So
Sorry,
if
guys.
you're listening to this right now, go and buy now.
And is it going to be recorded at all? Is anything going to be recorded?
No, because
Dang.
these are big comics, and
Yeah.
it's they're on Netflix, they're on Comedy
Even for
Central,
clips?
so-
Are clips going to be taken?
Yeah. We're gonna have
Okay.
clips. LatinComedyFest.ca is the Instagram. It's the website. At Stephan Dyer, you can see all the experience in my stories and in my channel. So I'll see you there, and thank you so much for having me, man.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Stephan. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
See you.
Can't slow us down.